You can manually kind of draw these markings and just get the measurements yourself. The next thing I want to review is about graphics that are placed over seam work. If you take a graphic and you move it so part of the graphic is not entirely on the pattern, it is not going to show up on the other side or the connected pattern piece. In order to create this visual, you have to have a copy of your graphic on the other pattern piece and align the images so the graphic appears to match. But the nice thing is, once you've placed these graphics, you can select them together and resize them simultaneously, and the seam work will still match up. There is a workflow that you can follow that makes the alignment of the graphic almost non-existent, but that requires that you are creating the seam work after the graphic has been placed. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and just delete this giant graphic on my side panel. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to add a new graphic, place this image down. So here I've placed a graphic down first. If I draw any style lines on my garment after I've placed the graphic down, if I cut and sew this style line, it will split the pattern apart and it will duplicate the graphic and keep everything aligned. So here I now have, my front now has 2 panels. All of this shirt is still using the same fabric. I'm going to make a copy, give that copy of my fabric a different texture image, and then apply that fabric to this panel. If you use this method of placing your graphic first and then cutting and sewing any seam work after, it will cleanly duplicate the graphic to the split patterns and make the alignment process almost non-existent. Next, I'm going to review how to update your graphics using colorway mode and the rules and limitations to doing this. So to move into colorway mode, you can go to the top right corner of your CLO program and you will see a little arrow where it says simulation. If you click on that arrow, you'll get a drop down and you can choose colorway. So when you move into colorway mode, you will see everything that is already applied to your graphics. So the jeans that are paired with this top have a bunch of top stitches, but I can see my graphics listed here. I actually have more than I want. I'm going to delete this one that I've placed on the back. If I need to remove this graphic so I don't see it here as an option, you are going to have to move back into simulation mode, then click on that graphic and delete this here. Anytime you need to delete a graphic, you're going to have to do this in simulation mode, but then I can quickly move back into colorway mode, and then I will only have this single graphic. So to add another colorway, you can click on this little plus sign here. If you want to rename your colorway, you can adjust that here. So I made a copy of my first version. In order to swap a new image into my second colorway, you have to select your graphic using the Transform Graphic tool, click on the graphic, and then in the property editor, you will find here under texture, this is the image that we currently have placed. So I can tell that I am updating the correct colorway because this column is highlighted. That is the one I would like to change. And then you can click on this little 4 square icon and it will open up a window to allow you to browse through folders on your computer. So here I can click on a different graphic image. So I'm going to select this rose, choose open, and switch out that image. So I did this for a reason because there is an important rule to follow when you are updating graphic options in colorway mode. And the limitation is basically that whatever the very first graphic that you place, the following images will basically fit within that first image's boundary box. And if the image that you place is smaller than your first image, it will take that image and tile it over and over again until it has filled all of that space. So in order for this to work, the artboard size or the size of your image must be exactly the same between the images. If it is not the same, you will see this tiling happening. So when you see this happening, there's really not much that you can do within CLO to adjust this image to be the same as your first image so I don't get a repeat. If I use the transform graphic tool and I think, oh, I just need to scale this up, it does not scale only the tile and keep that image within that board marking. It will scale the entire graphic. So here, if I tile this, if I jump back to this version, that has also been enlarged. And this is not what we always want. So I'm going to undo some steps here. Basically, the setup for these to match needs to be done outside of CLO. I'm going to swap out this rose with a version of the rose that I have made that is the exact same size as my first graphic. So I have a version of the rose that I adjusted in Illustrator to actually be the same exact size as my first graphic. Over here on the right is the first rose version that I've used, but I'm going to select this version called Rose Large. Now when I click open, that image is the exact same size as my first version, so I don't get that tiling issue that I saw before. So that's the basic rule of updating graphics using colorway mode, and some of the issues that you may encounter if your images are different sizes. So the general rule is, even if the image that you want to use for a different graphic option is smaller, I'm just going to open up my Illustrator really quickly to demonstrate. As long as the image is within an artboard that is the same size, so here my artboard is 6.94 by 6.72. This image artboard is the same, pretty much the same, 6.94. So then I have this saved as a PNG. I can click on this graphic now here to update the image that is being used in this colorway version. You can click on the little 4 squares. Then I'm going to grab this PNG so I can tell that my artboard is very large but my image is small. That will eliminate the tiling that will happen because it's following the artboard, not the image size. I hope that helps you understand further how graphics work and the limitations and rules to be aware of so your work process moves very cleanly. That covers how to use graphics in colorway mode. Now the next version that I want to go through is how to review graphics in colorway mode, but using artboards. So I'm actually going to go ahead and delete all of these colorways. I don't need them. I'm going to kind of start from scratch to show you a different method. So here's my original. I'm going to move back into simulation mode. I'm just going to delete this. So to delete your graphic, you can either right-click in the 2D window and hit delete, or you can hit delete on your keyboard when it is selected. I'm also going to remove these markings just quickly. That requires using the trace tool. With trace, then I can select these segments